Some may call us overachievers. Some may call us excited. I like to call it prepared. I think now is the time to decide what we are going to grow next year in our gardens. We need to be choosing our crops for next year right now, right on the Backyard Gardens podcast.
To have a good harvest, one must plant good seeds and must also use the right kind of fertilizer. The carrots have grown large and firm. How good they will taste.
Welcome to the Backyard Gardens podcast, where we talk about all things gardening and give the information out for you to be successful in your garden, whether it's your first or your last. We are your hosts, Ben, the backyard gardener, and
Batavia, the front yard gardener.
one in the country,
One in the city.
Now get ready as we dig deep into this wonderful world of gardening, as we learn to grow and grow for change. What do you think? You doing it? You deciding yet? Or are you just going to wait?
No, I have a working list, but I'm not very excited about it. Like, I'm excited about, opportunities to grow next year, but I have a lot of things to choose from.
There's a whole world to choose from.
I know.
And you've got to narrow it down. But look, anything that's new on your list, you can wait 3 years before you put it in the ground, so at least there's that.
I actually have a new approach for the next 7 days or so that I'll probably be taking to make choices, and that'll change on the 8th day, and then it'll change 7 days later. Like, my mind changes. It's just about around the fertilizing schedule. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I hear you. We have a question from a listener. Are you guys ready? Everybody says yes at the same time. Thank you. It goes, my first ever harvested sweet potatoes. I planted a Hannah sweet potato, and this is the outcome. So now a question besides digging up the rest of my garden is, how do I know if there are more to be harvested? Well, isn't that something else?
Yeah.
What do you think?
So I'm going to make some assumptions that this person planted sweet potatoes at the same time. So the ones that she just harvested, that she also planted the other ones that are in her garden at the same time. And unfortunately, I saw your answer already, which is the same answer I would have given. So, use your hands and dig around, right?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the key is use your hands. So what I do, and I just did a whole YouTube video about this, is I take my hands and I open them and I go finger first through the soil. Mm-hmm. And that's really key, because what that does is if you hit a potato, I'm showing Batavia like I need to, but your finger will bend and it'll help keep from bruising that potato. So I just kind of run my hands through, but they're not going to spread like a huge area across, maybe a foot, 2 foot, something like that. But what happens, like I just harvested mine, which was a fabulous harvest. Thank you very much. And I noticed a couple days later I had another sweet potato slip coming up. So I dug down, and guess what? There was another sweet potato down there. So
there it is, yeah.
There is that. But I mean, and 1 year I did the same thing, and I came back at the end of the year, like 2 months after, and dug through and found like 10 more sweet potatoes that had just gone off. So, but they had started growing, and it actually was really pretty because it was a random slip in a random place. So it was just kind of filling in gaps in the garden. It was actually really nice.
Yeah. I am second year growing white potatoes, second year growing sweet potatoes, but I've only harvested sweet potatoes once. But this is the beauty of some of these vegetables. Like, a lot of the kind of rules, if you will, I didn't really want to say rules. A lot of the ways you approach these vegetables, there's similarities. So the same way I would check to see if, I was ready to harvest white potatoes is the same way. I do think you're spot on when it comes to how delicate they may be, because that's going to impact how long they're going to store. And I'd say that sweet potatoes can store much longer than white potatoes. So you do want to take your time with that. Did you find, because you've grown them a few different years, do you find that they're closer to the surface?
Yeah. So generally they are closer to I don't really ever get them below 6 to 8 inches, maybe. I mean, it's worth if you guys really are curious about sweet potatoes, you should go back and look at the video, because I talk about it in extensively. But like, you basically flip your whole bed. You know, I have my bed's about 7 to 8 inches before it gets to the ground, like the actual earth, the crust layer of the earth, to be technical about it. So I'm basically, you're flipping that whole bed, running your hands through all of it. But I generally, like I said, I don't see them go as deep. Now, I know potatoes will go deep if you make them go deep. So and I think that's the thing, is putting dirt back on them and everything like that, like piling it up. And I think you could do the same with sweet potatoes. I just set it and forget it.
Yeah, I think just based on the way that the sweet potato slips, or the roots, right? You know, the way you plant them and the opportunity when they set roots and where those potatoes start to grow from, it seems like they end up being closer to the surface. And to your point, if you're mounding white potatoes, you know, kind of counter to that, then I've found, again, only 2 years in a row now, though, that the first couple of inches of soil are absolutely just soil, you know. So they're not as close to the surface as I found last year, my sweet potatoes. So, I mean, I guess the answer would be, you know, instead of turning the entire space over, which we didn't get a look at where the rest of the potatoes were, but instead of turning that entire space over, then, you know, just dig around. My guess, though, if she has potatoes that there are 3 or 4 or something from that one space, unless they're completely different growing conditions, then potatoes are ready in the other space too.
Yeah, and I want to say this too. There's a larger lesson here, young Batavia. You ready for it? There is no hard. If you're gonna keep on calling me young, I'm always ready for it. There is no hard and fast rules behind this stuff. Everybody, go with the flow. You know what I mean? Like, if I was in that position, this is what I would do. I would dig my potatoes up, and if I didn't know if there was any more, I would keep digging until I thought I was going to hurt another plant. That's when I would stop.
Yeah, I get it, right? But I've said this before, not often, so I feel very comfortable saying it again.
Okay, good.
That's experience speaking.
Yeah, no, totally.
You know, so, you know, it's because you're not that kind of guy. I know it's not like you're all like cavalier, like chill, like it's not that, right? There's a lot of... I'm sure this person's looking forward to a nice sweet potato harvest. And if she thinks that she can do something to help that versus hurt it, then she wants to understand it. So I definitely get it. I'm just going to default back to, man, root vegetables. They're
addictive to grow.
They're trying. Yeah.
They're trying and addictive. But, you know, the first year I grew them, so I went into it blind-ish. I knew, okay, I'm going to put sweet potatoes in. They're going to spread like crazy. I'm going to dedicate a whole bed to them. And then that way I knew whatever I needed to do, I had the space, I had the room to do it. And I wasn't let down. I was very happy with the outcome. And when it came time to harvest them, I looked it up and it was like, dig, harvest, be careful, don't bruise. That was all I got. You know what I mean? So I was like, okay. And once you stick your hands in the dirt and you start feeling them there, then you just kind of go. It's like I said, you're like a sweet potato archaeologist. You're just kind of digging and you're finding them and pulling them out. So, once you run out of potatoes and you run out of roots, there's no more potatoes.
Yeah. So put a note in your notebook. So in this episode that's coming up after the break.
Oh, did you want me to write it with my new fountain pen that I got? Sorry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I knew that you had a new fountain pen and I wanted you to christen this notebook with that pen. Sweet potatoes and planning for next year. So remind me to speak on that. Leonard?
Sweet taters. So
guys, so first off, he's actually writing it down.
Of course.
So cute. Yeah.
I've been accused of that a time or two.
Aw, yeah, Mama Shmugga, go ahead and write it down.
So if you guys have questions, you can hit us up on all of our social medias. That would be Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, maybe. We're not really big into Facebook, but, all those places, leave them and then we'll answer them. And before we do anything else, Batavia, we have to make an acknowledgement. You ready? I want to thank Todd, Kara, Hunter, somebody named S, Emily, Amanda, Bree, Patrick, and Tyler for all being patrons of the Backyard Gardens podcast. Thank you so much for being part of our community garden. These are our new patrons for this week.
Everyone got a bell there, so.
Yeah, don't ring it over and over. But we're going to take this break, and then we're going to come back, and we were going to get started talking about our topic for today, which I forgot the title, so I have to go look. Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out the Backyard Gardens podcast.
If you like what we're doing and you want to continue to support the podcast, head over to our Patreon page to sign up.
You can also make a one-time donation using PayPal. Both of these links are in the description.
With your support, we can continue growing and helping others in their gardens. See ya.
So I don't know what's wrong with me today, but I cannot remember the title. I know what I want to talk about, but I can't remember the official guidance. What is it, Batavia?
Well, it almost is never the working title that, you or I come up with.
Yeah.
When someone starts to edit and starts to get creative, it ends up being something totally different. But we want to talk about why this is the time to choose what you're growing next year.
Yes. Okay. So that's exactly what I was going to say anyways. No. But, I think for a number of reasons when we say this, or when I don't want to put words in Batavia's mouth, but when I say it, I think this is the time of year to be thinking about what you want to grow next year and making those final decisions, and also getting your seeds for next year earlier. So when everybody sends out their seed catalogs, y'all's late, son. Like, I've already bought, like, you don't even send them to me because it's too late. But there's a whole purpose behind this. And the number one reason I think is because you're coming off of the season, you're excited, and by now, I'm sure, like, in your garden, is it starting to slow down, Batavia?
It depends on what your definition of is slow.
Well, whatever your definition is, how's that?
So October is different and slower than, let's say, a month ago, this time, September.
So it's starting to slow down, and some of us may get the blues, the gardening blues, Some of us might get a little upset, the true excitement. Because, after all, if you are sitting here listening to this, let's face it, you're a real, true gardener. But it allows you to kind of relive that and move forward. And I like it because I know what I've harvested this year. I have everything's fresh in my head. I know what did well and what didn't do well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I know I talk about tomatoes a lot on this show.
You do.
It's one of my top favorite vegetables to grow. But the reason why it's such a good example is I've not made any tomato sauce yet this year. Like, I've not preserved any tomato sauce, as of the taping of this. And I look back and I'm trying to judge the volume of
the what?
The volume?
No, the taping.
I know. Listen now, I was born in the 70s, man. I'm like a cassette kid.
Leonard, roll the tape.
Get your pencil in there to try to rewind. And,
I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. It took me back. Go ahead, though.
So anyway, as of today, behind the microphone, I've not preserved any tomato sauce. Now, luckily, I have a bunch preserved from last year. So I'm making judgments around the types of tomatoes that I grew, the types, which is key, how much they yielded, which you can't always control, right? Most times you can't control that. And then I'm thinking about, like, I'm going to have enough to get me through, for tomato sauce in this example, through next spring, right? Next summer even, if I'm strategic with my consumption. But I'm going to be stuck when it comes to my desire to have tomato sauce on hand. And so my plans for changing how I was going to grow tomatoes have now shifted, right? You know, and
Right.
so I only know that because I'm towards the end of my tomato harvest, as an example, right?
Well, and you brought up a great point. Is a lot of us preserve, and to my surprise, I always operated on this show like not a lot of people preserve, but a lot of people do. I was in fact wrong. So, yeah. Not that I was wrong, that I admitted I was wrong. That's what the bell is for.
That is not a passive aggressive bail on my end.
No, not at all. But, we're looking at it right now, and a lot of us are preserving and putting stuff away, but your stores are filled right now. Mm-hmm. This is the most you're going to have stored for the whole year. So now you can look at it and say, yeah, we need to, next year I need to grow a little bit more of this. I need a little bit more of this. I need less of this too. Let me say that again. I need less of this. I know it hurts people, but it does happen. Yeah. So next year I'll probably grow 3 less green beans. You know what I mean? Like enough is enough, 3
less types of green beans?
No,
or 3 less
literally plants? 3 less beans in the ground.
Yeah, well, I think the timing of when things are producing is also really key. And so let's just take a step back here, right? Last year, I was all on the bandwagon of this is the largest garden I've ever had, right? That was the truth of the matter last year. The garden space hasn't changed that much this year. So it's still, we're in year 2 of the largest garden I ever had. So I am needing to manage things a lot differently than I did 5 years ago when I was gardening, than 10 years ago when I was gardening. So a lot of this has been kind of trial and error with what I actually desire, right? One more bell, right? You're going to hear that term used for us and from
desire.
Me. Yeah, going forward in these episodes. So a lot of what I thought I was interested in, what I really desire, what's easy to eat fresh, get in and get out, what's easy to preserve. So all of those things, because I'm in the thick of it now, right? All of those things.
Thick of it? Yeah. In the thick of it. I hate that song.
I was going to sing it, but you hear the small pause? That was, so all of that influences kind of what I want to do next year. So I'm not going to keep them waiting because we talked about this like 10 minutes ago. A real good example of timing. So I love kind of plants that just stay until the end. Like I like that idea with sweet potatoes.
Wait. Batavia, you need to bring up sweet potatoes for next year. There we go.
Why? Thank you. I'm glad that you spent the time writing it with your new pen and your notebook. So sweet potatoes is a great example of, I love them. I am a bit fascinated with the idea of growing them. We know that that's a stretch in my climate based on how hot and how long it's hot here, right? So all of that said, I've not harvested sweet potatoes as of the taping of this episode. So I reserve the right to change my mind if I have a kick-ass harvest. But I was thinking about how can I organize my garden for next year, like in my mind as far as what I want to grow, on my notebook, yada, yada, yada. And I made the tough decision to say, I'm pulling sweet potatoes out. Like bear with me. I'm pulling sweet potatoes off the plan and I'm going to plan my garden without them in mind. And I'm going to see what space I have left when I'm done. Right. So based on what I have left when I'm done, if I have space for sweet potatoes, right. So I'm putting them, they're going to take, I was just doing some recording on my DVR and it was like, this has the lowest priority of recording, which means it may not record. I'm like, I don't even know how they decided that, but that's the approach I'm taking with my garden. Right.
But you got cable?
Yeah, I got cable.
Damn.
Yeah, I know.
I hear you.
Look, bowling. Why you think I'm trying to preserve all of these tomatoes?
Yeah, because you got to pay for that cable.
Absolutely,
Damn.
Man. Shoot. I had to actually take out a loan for. No, I'm joking.
I almost had. Actually, I did have water come out of my nose. Thank you.
That's an example of when you start, and it doesn't matter if your garden is smaller, medium size, or larger. If you're growing more than a handful of vegetable types, like this is something that may be helpful for you, or at least in my mind, right? So sweet potatoes came off the list, off the priority list, because of the upfront work it takes to get to them, right? Slips aren't that hard, but it is a step. The idea of the timing that, dare I say, needs to be perfect. Like, so they're definitely planted later in the season, which means it's not a part of my spring garden. It would be a part of my summer garden. It needs a certain level of, am I going into plant profiles for sweet potatoes?
No.
All right.
Not yet.
It needs to have a certain level of light to perform well. We know if you're lucky, sweet potato vines can go wild, right? So all of these things, and my garden isn't just like, a quarter of an acre where I can just pick a spot and say, here. I have to be strategic about what I place where, right? So it's...
you need to hit the bell on that one. Strategic. That's key. Yeah.
So this isn't the kind of show where bells are requested, just so you know.
That was a demand, actually, but go ahead. I just worded it like it was a request.
Because we haven't gone over that, because you've not stepped over the line like you just did, I'm going to go ahead and I honored the bell. But just so you know, this isn't going to be some regular thing. Right?
You know I toe the line, so go ahead. I'll get my air horn. Don't worry, I'll overpower the bell.
But I'll round out, because I know you have some thoughts around this. I think that there are other things that I have on my list that are quicker producers, right? That are more versatile, that I can get out of the space that I really probably should give sweet potatoes, right? And so the truth of the matter is I may have room for it in a full bed, because I am trying to be generally more strategic when it comes to timing, vegetable types, gardening in 3 seasons next year. So all of those things are coming into place, and sweet potatoes at this point are just really cool to me, right? And so that can't be number one in my plan based on them being really cool.
Yeah, so first of all, when you said you're not going to grow sweet potatoes, my heart, literally, you broke my heart. So
I didn't exactly say that, but they are not they're not a part of the A team.
Yeah, that broke my heart.
Okay.
So, and I mean, the reason why is because I instantly went back in my head, and I went back to the month of August, and I was like, when I was eating my lunches, I had 2 sweet potatoes left over from last year, and those were the best days because I had something completely different.
Yeah.
It's just so easy. And I mean, I hear where you're coming from, where it's a different climate. It's a different demand. I do think that if you put them in your front yard and you got a quick growing variety, I think you would be surprised. But again, it's your garden. It's your choice. You can do what you need to do on it. It's just, for me, if I look into this same realm where you came from of like, it's just not a good producer. It takes too much space. It's too demanding. For me, it would be broccoli. In my area, like, it's so finicky. It's like the same thing, and it makes me sad to think to myself, like, I'm not going to grow broccoli.
Yeah.
So, I probably will grow it, but it's coming. The list, it's getting knocked down each year, less and less and less. Yeah. So I hear where you're coming from completely, and I respect it and understand it.
Yeah, I think that's important, and you guys, if I've said it, I've probably mentioned it before. The singular producers, right? I know you can get side shoots from broccoli, and they, depending on the variety, can be sizable. But I think that the single producers are kind of, they're on the consideration list to go to, team B versus team A.
Yeah. Now,
the saving grace for me for broccoli, or things like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, and things like that, you have an opportunity to get in and get out. So think about sweet potatoes for me. Again, I'm going to harp on sweet potatoes because it could be tomatoes, right? So
why you hating for, man?
Like, think about we're talking about 100+ days in my garden. They're taking space for 100+ days. And based on the timing of that, that's basically June to sometime in October. Right. So that garden space is not doing anything else. right? So I have an opportunity to grow something there early spring, and pull that just before I plant my sweet potatoes. But that's a lot of commitment. And I know one could argue the same thing about tomatoes, right? But that's a lot of commitment for this unknown production.
Yeah, it is. And so first of all, I don't want to make this a sweet potato episode, but it is a problem child. And last year I was with you on that, where it was like, damn, I used this whole garden bed and got nothing worth using that amount of space. So, and I don't know why I didn't think of it until just now. Bing, light bulb went off. But when we were talking earlier and we were answering the question, we're like, hey, the year before I had a sweet potato in another bed that just kind of showed up. What about planting as more of like a decoration area, like filler for areas, and then doing it that way? You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not trying to convince you to do anything. Yeah. I'm just saying in general, like instead of doing like a traditional garden, like saying, hey, there's a blank spot here, a little bit of vinage would look good, plop, put one in. It's just kind of thinking it through. But I think you'd have to have, because of the time frame required to get a harvest off of that, you would have to really have a solid plan.
Yeah. So two things. One, I grew sweet potatoes in containers in those grow bags last year. I wanted to dedicate a bed to it because I wanted to see the difference in growing them in the earth, if you will.
Right.
Two, anything that's on my team 1.1. Yeah. I'm not ready to 2 yet. Anything that doesn't make it on that top list, the first out list, I have an opportunity to grow them in containers, right? Yeah. So there is that. Two, to move on from sweet potatoes, melons are the same thing for me right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Melons. I didn't even know. I didn't think of that.
Yeah. I'm planting my garden around, meaning melons are on the side, right? You may get your shot, but you may not get into the game, right? You may be on the bench and, suited up, and just not make it into the garden. And again, it is the key here is the niceties versus the things that are more consistent producers. Yeah. That's what's driving me, right? So, again, I could probably name it, but I won't. Probably name 3 or 4 other crops that I've grown in these last 4 or 5 years that, I'll revisit at some point. But next year, so let's get down to 2022. Next year is really important for me as I look at kind of filling my pantry, as I look at where I am with my tomato sauce as an example and where I want to be, right? And so when I think about the timing of these vegetables and what I'm eating fresh, what I plant, because this would be the second year that I do 3-season gardenings going into 2022 would be the second year.
Right.
And so pulling out some things is going to have to happen. Right? Like I can get more, my garden can produce more if I plan accordingly. And I'm still developing that plan. That's fine. But
yeah, I planted, to put it in perspective, for my fall garden, I planted 200 seedlings into my garden. And because everything doesn't take up a lot of space, so I'm just packing stuff in everywhere. Now, when you talk about your pantry and filling it out and stuff like that for 2022, I can't go through this whole show without good conscience of stating the fact that there are shortages in the world right now, and the shortages are projected to get worse. So we all thought last year, like, oh, the shortages last year when the pandemic was quote unquote really here, and it's not going to go away, and all of those shortages have kind of compounded, and there have been outside influences that kind of had added to that. And so when we talk about, and we just did an episode and we were talking about like when we went to the grocery store and how bare things were and stuff like that. That's why for me, 2022, the focus is really going to be on what can we preserve more? What can we grow that will preserve and last longer? You know what I mean? What will freeze, for instance? Like, I'm not looking like, oh, there's going to be a power outage situation and we're all going to go to hell, but in the grand scheme of things, the more that we go and we see less, imagine if you went to the store and there was no tomato sauce. you'd be like, son of a bitch, I should have been canning my tomato sauce. You know what I mean? I don't want to be that person.
Yeah. And again, and we can't name all of the vegetables, so we do have to kind of focus on a few as examples. Tomato sauce is a great example because it's so multi-purpose. Right. You know, so I don't have every meal figured out with what I'm going to use for tomatoes. And I'm going to get to the point of making tomato sauce. I still have enough tomatoes that are coming off the vine and all of that. But
But if you blink, you will run out of time to make tomato sauce too. Absolutely.
It is... Oh, you made me lose my train of thought because you just reminded me I'm going to blink and run out of time. You can make a meal, right? You know, like it's the base, if you will, right? And so when I think about 2022, and I promise you, what's today? This is Sunday morning. I went to get some gas, you know, so I'm in Illinois and I normally drive across the border to Indiana to get some gas, cheaper, like 20, 30 cents cheaper, right? And so there's a big box store like right across the street. So I'll go there and do a little bit of grocery shopping. I'm an early riser, so it's like the sun is up and I'm out. And so I promise you, this lady was going to her car, like we were leaving in the parking lot at the same time. She's like, yeah, girl, you got to get out and get early. You know, you got to get up here and beat all of these folks at the stores. And so I'm yelling across the parking lot like, yeah, girl, I know. And so then I said, she's like, because things look just, you know, you won't have anything on the shelves. And I'm like, oh, did you see the meat section? We're yelling because I'm that kind of person across the parking lot. And it's exactly that idea of people are absolutely conscious of what's happening in the grocery stores if they're in the grocery stores. Yeah. And when I look at everything that I plant, and I'm going to bring it down a notch. I feel like I may be a little bit animated.
That's okay.
So, yeah, girl.
Get animated.
So, the everything isn't for harvest. Like I'm not growing everything, or excuse me, everything isn't for preserving. I'm not growing everything in my garden for preserving. But what I want to be clear about is the timing and the plants that I want to grow to preserve versus those that are going to make a hearty contribution to a meal.
Yeah.
And it's exciting because, again, I mean, how many years did I not have any food coming out of the garden in May? Right. Like almost every year before this year. Right.
Well, and I mean, so, you've got to have you've got to strike a balance with what you're growing. And, you know I said like I'm focusing heavy, but the key word is I'm focusing heavy. I'm not only doing, you know, and that's the same, you know, with you. I know how you are.
That's golden, man. That's golden.
I know how you are. You know, you plant things and you want to preserve, but you're dipping your toe in slowly into preserving. So, you know, and it's amazing. There's a lot of things that we grow that we can preserve that we don't even realize.
For example?
Well, greens. You can preserve greens, broccoli. You know, a lot of people don't think you can, which, you know, well, a lot of people I talk to personally don't think you can, and I didn't think I could either. And then I was like, well, why not? I buy frozen broccoli at the store all the time. Like freezing is definitely a method of preserving.
Yeah, I wouldn't say for the people that I talk and chat with, because I think that depending on kind of your upbringing, I think that influences the things that you realize were, you know, not bought fresh, right? You know, so I also, though, think that the transition between, you know, that you buy frozen broccoli and you producing broccoli in your garden and then freezing it is a hop. Yeah. You know, so so much of my garden for so many years was all about what I could eat in the moment. When I say fresh, that's what I mean. Of course, I cooked a lot of it, but what I could eat in the moment. And so now we have this last few years of transitioning and saying, I'm going to grow more food, you know, for an ultimate purpose. I'm going to grow more food. I can't eat all of this food because guess what? I don't want to. I want to preserve a lot of this food, right? I want to be able to, at any given day, eat something from my garden, no matter if it's 3 feet of snow on the ground, right? And that takes some planning. It's back to your earlier point about too much of a thing. Yeah. You know, and if you have too much of a thing, chances are you don't have enough of another thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a real good point. You know, if
I felt the mic drop moment there. Yeah. But it's a little bit obnoxious to call it out.
No, it's not. You're welcome to do that because I can tell you if it was or wasn't. But that's, you know, that's exactly right. Like I have too much of this where else is it lacking? You know, it's like I was looking in my garden and I was like, man, I got basically a radish farm going on right now because I really learned that I really enjoy radishes. And I've actually gotten some people have made some comments like, man, you just grow too many radishes. And it's like, no, I really enjoy them. Like, get out of my garden space. And if you want to be involved, like you can look and be involved, but don't be telling me what to grow. And, but I look at it, I'm like, but am I missing something? Is there something that could be there that I could enjoy more? And as of right now, the answer is no, but that could very well change. You know, when it comes down to this time of year, there's a method to the madness, and I just haven't totally, like, I've never really locked in to the fall garden madness, but that is what brings me, because I'm also at this same time focusing on next year. And how, because, you know, spring and summer are really where my garden shines. And I guess as of last year, winter, because of the greenhouse and different things. Yeah. So, but being able to focus now is getting ahead of everybody else. Getting ahead of everybody is still talking on social media, if you're into that, about what they're harvesting. That's a great time to get out there and ask questions about it and learn about different things. You know, like I saw somebody post pictures of peanuts that they grew. I know good and damn well they grow peanuts right up the road from my house. I've never grown a peanut. Why? I love peanuts. I love them. Ain't nothing better than a boiled peanut. You dry them and they hold. You know what I mean? Like, what's the problem? So it's like, I learned that because I was on there, and now I'm like, okay, I got to grow peanuts. Yeah. So I'm making that plan already.
So, either in the opening or very early on, you talked about, you know, getting your seeds and getting things that you'll need for next year when you're thinking about what you want to grow. So I have like a list that I'm cutting each time, right? So I have my 2022, what seeds do I need that I don't have? And I'm listing them, and I'm doing that based on what I've already grown and I want to grow again, right? So I'm looking at them and saying, okay, but do you really, really want this in your space? Or is it really just a novelty? Right. You know, and so that takes me a few iterations before I start going off and ordering seeds or buying seeds or whatever. So the white potatoes more so than sweet potatoes, because the secret of that whole sweet potato, you know, montage that I went through, white potatoes are sitting right next to sweet potatoes on that, you know, sitting on the bench list. Yeah. Right. You know, and so while we talked about the benefit of having them as a part of our August challenge, we talked about all of that. I'm also weighing the easiest access. Right. So I don't need to buy another tomato seed. I have tomato seeds in my home, right? I don't need to buy another brassica seed. I have brassica seeds in my home. Are there things within my garden? I don't even know how you start to grow peanuts, but are there things in my garden that I have on my list to grow that I don't have those seeds for? Now is absolutely the time, right?
Right. Well, and the thing is, you have to think about too is, you don't need a brassica seed. Okay, you've got them, but maybe there's a different variety of brassica seed, and that's okay. That's okay if you want to grow curly kale instead of dinosaur kale. I don't have a problem with that. And I think it's respectable. And I think it's a good idea to diversify your garden with different varieties of different things and try new things. Like I get where you're coming from. So if you go to order your seeds now, and let's say, all right, look, I'm going to be real. I'm about to be real, okay? I'm a cheap fuck when it comes to this stuff. Like, straight up. Like, I will put my seed order together, and I will say, okay, I have this. I make a budget every year. And then as I go through and I start dwindling it down. And then that's when the varieties can come or go. Because I'm like, you know what? I already have a kale. Do I need another kind of kale? Do we really need it? Because you know what? Kale's kale, right?
Yeah, I think kale is such a great example of that, because kale is a vegetable that I really, really, really want to grow. Specifically, curly kale is what I really, really want to grow. And when I really wasn't trying, I had no issues with it. I'd grow it. I'd buy the transplants, grow it in the middle of the summer and be successful. These last couple of years, because I've also had these other things that I've been trying to do, I've missed it somehow. So I finally got some kale planted back here, I'm going to say in the spring. And it's sitting in a container and it sat the entire summer with, maybe 6 or 7 leaves on each of the plants. It's like 3 or 4 plants in this one pot. And I kept on looking at it like, what the hell, man? So now this weather is cooled off and I'm seeing new growth. And there are 2 important points there. I've grown kale, some variety of kale in the heat of the summer without issue. This variety that I grew clearly didn't like it hot.
Yeah.
Right. So back to your point of, do I have seeds for the variety that would grow in the summer well? And if I don't, do I want to grow it in the summer bad enough to go and get those seeds? Because if I do, I need to get out there and start getting them, Or do I say, you know what, I'm going to fall in line with when kale is the happiest, which is in the cooler temps, spring and fall. I haven't decided yet, but that's a really good example of thinking about how you want to, or what you want to grow next year and thinking about it now.
Now, I don't know if there's going to be seed shortages or not. I haven't heard any. Have you heard anything about that for this year?
I haven't seen it. So some of the online sites that I've seen, a lot is in stock, and the things that aren't in stock are normally, like if I go back 4 years, are not in stock this time of year. So it seems pretty normal.
I'm looking right now on the news. I want to see. 4 days ago, supply chain shortages continue around the world. Get used to it. So that was one of the headlines. Yeah. So damn, this shit is depressing. I wish I wouldn't have looked at that. So what they're saying, and basically, and look, I did what you just heard is the amount of research I did, but I believe to an extent. But they're saying like farmers are getting hit with rising costs, which we know, and so when that comes, what happens? They go up on their prices increase. Right? So we're going through a period right now. We're going through some serious pains in our country and really across the world. But I can't speak for places I don't live, where the pandemic has crippled a lot of industries, and we are, as consumers, are paying the price. Okay. We paid the price with the wood this year, and then everybody stopped buying wood and the prices went down because they're like, crap, nobody's buying wood. So it's all the same thing. So it's going, doo-doo rolls downhill. So we're going through all of this now, and I don't know how it is with seeds. I don't know if there's shortages, but I do know that the prices are going up.
Yeah.
Okay, I stated in the last show, I found a seed packet at my house that was like 3 or 4 years old. Found the exact same one with the exact same artwork, everything. The only difference is it had less seeds in it, and it was twice the price.
Yeah.
So that's a real thing going on right now. So that just means we need to be more mindful. And I mean, as consumers, you guys have the power to drive the prices where you want. You are in charge as a whole. Not the companies are not in charge. They think they're in charge. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, I saved seeds off of one mustard plant. I ain't got to buy no more seeds for 10 years. Okay, that's one plant. And I'm not even joking. It was crazy how much you get. So when we move forward, we think about these things. And as I'm like I said, I'm cheap. I'm not cheap. I'm thrifty. Whatever. I look at these things. And I'm like, all right, there's going to be shortages. The costs are going up. Let me go ahead and get everything I need now. And then when everybody else is rushing to get everything, because I saw it last year, I buy my seeds in November. Maybe December. I buy all my seeds and I'm done thinking about it. Now, don't get me wrong. I'll pick up a packet here or there or something, but the bulk purchase is done. And then come February or March, I saw people and they were all scrambling to get their seeds. They couldn't find stuff because everybody was sold out. Then, the seed catalogs came and it got even more confusing. And then because of the seed shortages, the people couldn't start the seeds in time to get them into their garden in time. So a lot of people had delayed gardens. So you defeat all of this. Not to mention, if you buy them now, you're probably going to get some kind of discount because they're trying to get rid of this year's seed. And some seeds, like carrots, you don't really want to buy last year's seed. But there's most seeds they will be fine the second year. So
remember
that's another benefit.
2014, 2015 spinach seeds I sowed. So there's that. And they have germinated. Not all of them, but some of them did germinate. So I think I have these last 3 years I can look back and I've basically been, placing things in my cart for things I purchased online in December. And before the end of the year, my order is placed. So I'm getting those seeds in January, which is really important because there are a lot of things that I'm starting earlier and earlier. If you're ordering seeds, some of these things you're starting indoors. Some of them are being direct sowed, and that's fine, right? That's actually my preferred method. But anyway, if you're starting things indoors, you want to have what you need then, when you're ready to start seeds, right? And it's a whole production at my house. So I don't want to, have to run out or have to place an order or, have to change my plan because this thing didn't, wasn't available. I thought I had them. The package was actually empty. So, I think that if you look at it and say, what do you need? What can you acquire now? Right? Take those steps. So this is October. You may be in a position where you need to save a few dollars to get to those purchases, right? Yeah. So you want to have an idea of what that budget looks like so you can save towards it, So you still have time, again, if you're making that plan, if you're planning what you plan on growing next year.
Well, why would you not want to save a couple bucks?
Yeah, exactly.
So this weekend, my wife, she called in on the radio and she actually won tickets to go see Trevor Noah.
Oh, very cool.
So we went to go see Trevor Noah and we go to the venue. It was an outdoor venue, so we were safe. And we get there and it's $20 a drink. Okay, and people are lined up, bro. They are lined up trying to get some damn drinks. And some of them were trashed. And I told her, I was like, we ain't rich. But if I had $1 million in my pocket, I would not go buy a $20 drink. That's not happening. Like, there's just a point where you're just literally throwing money in the trash. So you have this opportunity to save money. Hell, a lot of people even give you a free pack of seeds this time of year because they just want to get rid of the shit. You know what I mean? They're just like, sure, take them. Here's 4 packs of seeds. Like, why would you not take advantage of that?
So I'm going to apologize in advance for those that catch this. We moved our recording time up, which means that it's right at the time that my neighbor's lawn folks are here. So it's real life, man. This is it. It's garden related. It's lawn care.
You know what? Your neighbor needs to plant a garden and get over the lawn people.
She totally has a garden, man. They're actually mowing around it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So it's these are all things to think about.
Yeah.
Have I missed anything?
I think that a lot of what I focused on, I'm going to say was basically kind of using the garden as it is today to help you plan what you're going to grow next year. But you got to go back. You got to go back to before, your September, your, August. Like, stretch a little bit and think back to earlier this year. There's this saying that, and I'm sure it applies to a lot of different things. So my hair is locked. It's a whole style, right? And so one of the common things you hear people say is, my only regret is not doing it sooner. Right. And that's my story as well. Like, I got it locked in 2019 and my only regret is not doing it before then. And so when it comes to people in their gardens, you oftentimes, how many people are you talking to now that are planting a fall garden, excited about it because the summer got away from them and they didn't have a chance to plant summer garden stuff?
Surprisingly, there's a lot of people.
Yeah. And so
I was kind of surprised.
Believe you me, there are people that absolutely want to plant a spring garden, right? And they're in the midst of summer saying, oh, I missed the spring window, right? Like, what we're talking about now is an opportunity to not be, the person that is saying, I wish I would have done it sooner, right? So again, the beauty in all of this is you have time to recover, recover meaning if you missed your spring window in 2022, you got summer, you got fall, but you're in a position now to make some thoughtful decisions around what next year is going to look like for you.
Yeah. And when it comes down to it, I want to be more prepared earlier so I can have a solid plan and be stress-free about it and beat the rush. And I urge everybody to kind of do that, step outside of the box of like, don't let the weather getting warmer cause you to go out and get something. Because if the weather is warm and you're going to buy seeds, it's too late. It's way too late. So,
one other note though, if you're thinking and planning now, you can get in front of it's cold outside, the weather's crappy, and I don't want to think about the garden, right? So
that's the thing too. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a sad truth.
Yeah, I know.
It makes me sad. Everybody, don't do that. Just be happy. Be happy. But no, and I mean, the same thing goes with me for starting seeds is by the time I get my seed order very shortly after that, I'm already getting all of my supplies together to start seeds. So when it's time, all I got to do is just go down. I don't have to do 15 different trips. I just, boom, go make it happen, Captain.
Yep.
And everybody's happy. So, anyways, we are going to go to our recipe of the day. And it's Batavia's turn because I sneaked into 2.
Yeah, I when I was listening back, I'm like, he said it was his, but it really wasn't. That's okay. All right.
It's an honest mistake. So we'll be right back with the recipe of the day. A lot of y'all asked, how can you help support the Backyard Gardens podcast? Well, we have been busy and we have created a t-shirt line just for the gardener.
To visit our shop, go to the link in the show notes and check out the t-shirts and other goodies we have.
Now, these are super special t-shirts designed just for the gardener, so enjoy. Thank you for supporting the Backyard Gardens podcast, and we'll see you guys after the harvest.
Salted caramel or caramel pear butter.
No. You're not going to make me eat this. No.
Yes. So I discovered this recipe. I didn't discover it, right? I found the recipe last year. It's actually a recipe. I preserved this, but I'm going to give it to you from the site freshpreserving.com, associated with Ball. And you can make it to enjoy now, right? So if you're interested in actually preserving it, I'll leave it to you to get to the water bath canning instructions and all of that. But it's the perfect time because guess what's in your stores? Guess what's in, the last of your farmers markets? Pears, right? So recipe calls for 4 pounds of pears. You're going to core them and chop them coarsely. Right. There's a solution that you can use to prevent the pears from yellowing. But for this recipe, it doesn't matter so much because we're going to cook them and they're actually going to take on a different color. So 4 pounds of pears, a 1/3 cup of apple cider. I'm sure you could use some other apple juice potentially, but I did use apple cider. 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, 2.5 cups of dark brown sugar. I know. 2 teaspoons of salt. It could be sea salt or kosher salt. So you're going to chop up your pears. You're going to dump this all into a crock pot. This is one of my favorite things because it's kind of a set it and forget it. So you're going to dump all of your pears, your apple cider, and that lemon juice into a crock pot. My guess is probably you're also adding lemon juice based on the idea of preserving it later. But anywho, you're going to cover it and let the pears simmer on high, which kind of sort of doesn't work that way. But that's what the recipe calls for, simmering on a high setting. And it's going to be about 40 minutes. Turn the heat off, right? You want to actually blend up the pear mixture, right? So you can do that if you have one of those hand mixers, like blender thingies, or you can put it into a regular blender or food processor to kind of make that mixture a bit more smooth, right? You may have to do it in batches, which is fine. All right, so now you're going to take that pear mixture, put it back into your crock pot if you removed it to blend it, and you're going to add your brown sugar and salt, right? So turn the heat back to high. They call for turning your top to your crock pot on a diagonal to let some of the steam out, because you want this thing to start thickening up at this point. So this is going to take 3 or 4 hours, man. So listen to 3 to 4 episodes of the Backyard Gardens podcast as this thing is simmering away. Right. You want it to be not thick like peanut butter, but thick where you can actually pour it from the spoon and actually, takes a little bit of time to, I don't know, there's some official saying about that. And so at this point, you can put them into jars. If you're going to can it, this is when you're going to go into the canning steps. If you're going to put it in a refrigerator or give it to friends and family, this is a great little treat. I use it on toast. And just to the note, it preserved and kept really well. So we're going on like 10 or 11 months where I still have a couple of jars. So I put it on toast. It's great on sandwiches. Think about if this time of year, you're coming up on maybe some ham sandwiches, turkey sandwiches, it'd be good on that. I can add this to anything you would normally add a jam to. The only note that I personally have is the color of mine came out more like dark brown sugar than like the picture. It looks more caramel-like on the picture, a lighter brown. And that could be that, again, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Who knows? It calls for dark brown sugar versus light brown sugar. Maybe I'll try it this year and see if I can get a lighter effect. It doesn't matter to me because it's still delicious, but just so you know.
Yeah, it sounds, I know that a lot of places will put there's a chemical I don't know the name of it, but that will preserve the color though. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, since you're adding lemon juice, you can water bath it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's key to know. If we're going to give canning recipes, we got to tell them. We don't have to tell them exactly its times, but we just tell them water bath or pressure can.
I can tell them anything I want. And I told them, head over to freshandpreserved.com if you're interested in canning.
Truth.
And they say water bath. So that recipe made about 4 8-ounce jars, which are half pints. So it's a nice little,
a lot.
Yeah, it's a nice little, I ended up putting them into even I don't even know, the quarter, like the 4-ounce jars.
The little teeny ones?
Yeah, the smallest ones that you can find. I actually made some with that size because it was just a little bit more convenient.
Well, I started doing that this year and it makes sense.
Oatmeal. That actually was my favorite last winter way to add. Like, it basically, that's the only thing you need to add to it was this peanut butter. The only reason why I'm not crazy about using the smaller jars, and I know this is going to sound weird, and it's okay. You're burning a lid. When I say burning, I mean you're using a lid that you only get one use out of for canning purposes, and it's on such a small jar. I'm having that issue now with salsa. But anyway, that's a different story.
I mean, I wouldn't recommend using those small jars for canning tomato sauce, but for something like that where you're not using a whole lot, like it makes sense.
Yeah.
But no, I'm with you on that. Lids it is what it is though. But I think they're great. We make pepper jelly and stuff. I love using those little jars.
Yeah, yeah.
How many pears went into that recipe?
That was 4 pounds of pears. I don't remember the quantity from last year.
4 pounds.
Yeah, how many pears equaled 4 pounds, but
I think it's a quarter bushel, if I'm not mistaken.
I was going to go I think that's like 14 pears. Here you are to a quarter bushel.
Well, no, because I think that's not too far off because they sell them at the grocery store in little paper bags. Mm-hmm, so, unless, if you're like me and you have a pear tree that's been in the yard for 3 years, I haven't given you a damn pear yet. Son of a bitch. So, yeah. That's a solid recipe. Thank you, Batavia. Salted caramel is my favorite ice cream flavor. Write it down in the books, people. And if anybody wants to send me ice cream, salted caramel ice cream that she made, let me know. Mm-hmm. Address is on the way, baby.
It's caramel for me, but it's one of the best things ever.
No, caramel and caramel are two different things.
No, it's not.
I will hear no different.
No, it's not. If you're not canning this and you're going to eat it like now or gift it, sprinkle a little bit of sea salt on top. Mm-hmm. Right? And then put that top on and, do whatever you're going to do, man. Damn. I just made myself so hungry.
Damn, that's going to happen.
For
sure.
One quick story. My neighbor, she just had her a 16-year-old's birthday party. 2 weeks before that, it was 18-year-old's birthday party. So she did a really sweet thing in the backyard for them. And, I've known these kids since forever, right? But I'm not going to go over to their birthday party. I gave them a card across the fence. And so in both cases, they're like, would you like some cake? And my answer is always yes to cake now. And so followed by chocolate or vanilla or both.
Both. Come on, man. Why y'all tripping? And I'm going to put some salted caramel pear butter on it. So holla at your boy.
But for that recipe, I mean, I imagine you could cut back a little bit if you wanted to cut back on some of the sugar or whatever.
Well, there's ways to do stuff no sugar, so you can, and that's probably what we would end up doing. But honestly, if you use it like you're supposed to, it's not that much.
Yeah, it's not I wasn't eating it every morning. It absolutely is a treat. Get you through some of those cold winter days,
So everybody, thank you so much for being part of our show and listening to us. Check out all of our stuff down below in the descriptions of wherever you're listening. Become a patron. Help support us. Help us create more content for you. And get out and buy some seeds, man. Make your plan. Figure out what you want to eat next year. Not what you want to grow, but what you want to eat. Think about it that way. There it is.
That's it, man. Hour in. It took an hour to get to that.
It took an hour to get to that. What do you want to grow? What do you want to eat next year? That's it. So we love you guys, and be safe. Wear a mask. Let's squash this thing. And Batavia, tell them something good.
See ya.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. If you want to see what we're up to, or just stay up to date on all the announcements regarding the show or anything gardening, then you can follow us on Instagram at Backyard Gardens TV.
We love seeing what you guys are doing, so use hashtag BYG Podcast in your posts, and we'll be sharing your gardens with the Backyard Gardens community.
And check us out on YouTube at Backyard Gardens, where we will post this show, all of our other shows, clips, and then also some gardening tips and just gardening entertainment. And you can see us at our website at backyardgardenstv.com. But that's it for today's show. So help us as we learn to grow and grow for change. And until next time, we'll catch you guys later. We'll call this one a wrap.
Now you know why people feel like celebrating at harvest time.
All over the world, people have feasting and good times when the crops have been gathered in.